Morning Year 4, Miss Davis today. How are you all doing? Hope you're having a really lovely week. Today is day 3, lesson 3 of your maths remote learning this week, and I'm going to be talking you through this lesson step by step. So you need some paper, you need a pencil, you need a ruler for this lesson or something straight that will give you a straight line. And let's get ready. Okay. So the first question you've got on your remote learning sheet there is this one. It says, a class of children were asked to go into a field and collect data about the numbers of different coloured flowers. This is the data they collected. Now, it's ever so slightly blurry, I'm sorry about that, but hopefully you can see the tally chart here and then the totals along the right-hand side here. You've got 4 questions to answer about this data. Question 1, which coloured flower is the most frequent? That means which one came up the most. Question 2, how many pink, yellow and purple flowers are there altogether? Question 3, how many more yellow flowers than red flowers are there? And question 4, which coloured flowers have the same frequency and what is their total added together? Press pause now, have a really close look at the information in the questions and write down your answers. Take your time and then we'll mark them on the next page. Okay, the answers are a bit blurry too, but I will read them out for you. Which coloured flower is the most frequent? It's the white flower because it came up 30 times on the tally chart here, just there. Question 2, how many pink, yellow and purple flowers are there altogether? You needed to add up 24, 29 and 27 and your answer was 80. Question 3, how many more yellow flowers than red flowers are there? Well, there were 29 yellow flowers and 24 red flowers, so you needed to take those two away from each other and you would have ended up with an answer of 5. And finally, which coloured flowers have the same frequency and what is their total added together? Well, red and pink have the same frequency and when you add them together, there were 48. Hope you did okay with that question. Let's move on to the next slide when you're ready. Okay, here is some other data that children have collected. On a walk, one child pushed a trundle wheel. That's one of those funny wheels on a stick that helps you to measure distance. And they were measuring the distance in metres. Another child carried a stopwatch and recorded the distance walked every 5 minutes. Here is their data. So every 5 minutes that went by, the child with the stopwatch said, stop, record the distance, and then the other child with the trundle wheel wrote down exactly how far they'd gone at each of those time intervals. Okay. Have a close look at this graph now because you're going to have to answer some questions. All of the information that was in this chart here has now been transferred onto a line graph. And a line graph shows a kind of continuation of data. It's information that keeps going over a period of time. And you can see it's been plotted here. Along the bottom, this is what we call the x-axis, and often it's labelled with an X. You can see the time in minutes, and it's in intervals of 5 minutes because they were checking the distance every 5 minutes. On the y-axis, which is the one that goes up the top here, you have the distance in metres that they travelled, and this is going up in 500s. So it's 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000. And when you're labelling axes on a graph, it's so important that these intervals are evenly spaced out. Okay, so this is in 5s, this is in 500s, that's fine, as long as the gap between them is always the same. They have to be even. Okay, question 1, have a close look at the graph. How far had they walked after 13 minutes? We'll have a look at the answer and how to work that out in a moment. Question 2, how many minutes did it take to walk 2,000 metres? Question 3, how far did they walk between minute 6 and minute 16? And question 4, how far did they walk between minutes 15 and minute 25? Press pause, have a really good think about these questions. You might want to use your ruler here to help you to find exact distances or times on your graph. If there's a question you're stuck on, just hang on because we'll go through the answers in a moment. Press pause now and work on that now. Okay, so let's have a look at this together. How far had they walked after 13 minutes? So what you need to do here is you need to look at your minutes along the bottom. You need to find 13, so this is 10, and this is 15. So each little square in between is worth 1 minute. So I'm going to count from 10, 11, 12, 13 minutes is right there on that line. Okay, so if I want to know how far they had walked after 13 minutes, I need to follow this line up, and this is where your ruler will be helpful to you, and I need to stop when I hit the line of the graph, okay, which is where that little red dot is there. Now, if I use my ruler to help me follow that line of the graph across where the distances are, then I can see it lines up there, so the distance was 1,000 metres. Question 2, how many minutes did it take to walk 2,000 metres? Well, this time I need to find 2,000 metres because that's the information I've got in my question. I can see 2,000 metres is right here. I want to know how many minutes it took to walk that far, so I'm going to use my ruler again and I'm going to follow this line of the graph all the way across carefully, and I'm going to put a mark where it hits the line of the graph. Okay, now I know where it hits the graph, I can follow this line down. Again, use your ruler to help you, and you'll be able to see at the bottom here how many minutes. Well, it's there. This is 25 minutes and this is 30 minutes, so I need to count carefully. 25, 26, 27 minutes was the correct answer there. Okay, question 3. How far did they walk between minute 6 and minute 16? Okay, first job, let's find minute 6. Here it is. I'm going to put a marker at minute 6. And now I want to find minute 16. So I'm going to find minute 16, which is right here, and I'm going to put a marker here. Okay, I'm going to rub out because I don't want to get confused. This one in the middle because I don't need that for this question. Okay, so here is minute 6 and here is minute 16. I've just put a mark where they are. I want to know how far they walked in this amount of time. Okay, so I'm going to have to look at my graph and measure that distance on my graph, which is a bit tricky. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dot where minute 6 is, which is there. And then I'm going to put a dot where minute 16 is, which is right there. Okay, so now I'm looking at this section of my line graph and I want to know the distance. So if I start by following this line across here, I can see 500 meters is where it starts at minute 6. Okay, so I'm going to make a note of that down here, at 500 meters. And then where it finishes here at minute 16, that is almost 1,100 because it's here, but it's ever so slightly, if I want to be really particular, it's ever so slightly above. So I'm going to call it 1,150. Now when you work this out, you might have just called it 1,100. That's allowed as well. I'll give you a little bit of leeway on this one. So if I want to know the gap between 1,150 and 500, I need to take 500 away from 1,150, which will give me this distance here, and that answer is 650 meters. Now that was a tricky one. If you've got an answer that was close to 650 meters, I'll let you have the point for that one because it was hard to see perfectly on this graph. Okay, final question. How far did they walk between minutes 15 and 25. Okay, I'm going to get rid of all these marks because they might confuse me. And I'm looking at minute 15 first, so I'm going to put a marker there. And minute 25, so I'm going to put a marker there. Okay, same again, I want to check where the line of my graph meets it. So I'm following this up. Oh, it's right there. And that is exactly at 1,100 meters. So I will make a note of that down here. And then I'm looking at minute number 25, and I'm going to follow this line of my graph up. It's right here where this darker dot is, and I can see by looking across that that is 1,500, 600, 700, 1,700. Sorry, 1,000, yes, 1,700. Okay, so again, just like before, if I want to find this distance here, it's the gap between 1,700 and 1,100. So I need to take the smaller number away from the bigger number, which will give me an answer of 600 meters. If you got close to 600 meters, if you were within 50 meters of this, I'll let you have the mark for that, because those last two, number 3 and 4, were really tricky. Really well done with those questions. Let's move on and have a look at some other graphs and some other questions. Okay, so the next question we're going to look at is this one here. Now you have got this already drawn out for you, printed out for you in an attachment to the remote learning that goes with lesson 3. But if you've got some squared paper and you want to draw this out yourself, it's a bit of an extra challenge really. If you're doing that, then be really, really careful that you've spaced these numbers out really evenly. You can see along the x-axis here, every 2 squares, there's a number, and it's going up in twos. It's not, it's going up in ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up the side here, again, they're really evenly spaced, and it's going up in twos. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, etc. This is called a scale, and it has to be even. You can't put random numbers along the bottom here. You can't space them out in a different way. They have to be really even, and they have to be going up in even jumps each time. Okay, so if you're drawing it out, be really careful with that. Okay, here's the data that we are going to be plotting on our graph and then answering some questions about it. So it says, Purple class grew a plant. They measured the height of the plant every week for 6 weeks. The table shows the height of the plant each week. So you can see here in week 1, it was 4 centimetres. In week 2, 7 centimetres. In week 3, 9 centimetres, etc. up until week 6. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to try and plot this data onto our graph, okay, and make sure that we do that carefully. So you're going to need a sharp pencil and a ruler for this. So if you need to press pause and go and grab that now, do so. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to check is my weeks along the bottom. So this is week 1 here, where this little line meets the line of the square. And I can see from my table over here that in week 1 the plant had grown 4 centimetres. Okay, so I find week 1 here and I follow this line up until I reach 4 centimetres, which is there, look, because I can see by following my eye across to the y-axis that 4 centimetres is here. So I'm going to put a dot there. That will be the first point of my graph. Okay. In week 2, which is down here, the plant was 7 centimetres. So I'm going to follow this up until I get to 7. There's 6. The next 2 squares is 8, so I need to go down 1. It's the one in between here, and that would be 7 centimetres there. Okay. Week 3 is 9 centimetres. So here's week 3. I'm going to follow this up. There's 8, so 9 must be the next one here. It will be there. Week 4, I'm looking for 12, so here's week 4. I'm going to follow this up. I'm looking for 12 centimetres up the side here, and I can see I've reached 12 centimetres there. Week 5, the plant was at 14 centimetres, so here's week 5. Let's follow week 5 up until I can see on the left hand side 14 is right there. And finally week 6, it had grown to 17 centimetres, so I need to make sure I stay on this line for week 6. Here's 16, here's 17 now. So press pause now, plot the points of your graph and then connect these dots together like a dot to dot using a ruler, okay, and that will give you your line graph. Once you've done that, we can have a look at the 3 questions to do with the line graph that you've just drawn. Okay, so press pause now and work on that now, please. Okay, once you've drawn your graph, then you can see here we've got some questions. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect up my dots, which I haven't done yet, because I need to be able to see exactly where the line is to be able to answer these questions. Okay, now I'm going to start in the corner here. This represents 0 of my plant, okay, and I'm going to connect it to the first line there, which I've done. And then next, this dot needs to connect to this dot here. This dot, just like join the dots basically, connects to here. This one creeps up to there. This one connects to here. And this one to here. You've probably done a much more careful job than me, but there's my basic line graph. Okay, now I can answer my questions. Question 1. How much has the plant grown by week 4? Well, actually, I can use my line graph to help me, but to be honest, if I wanted a quick cheat through this question, I can just look at my table here, because look, week 4, I know my plant has grown 12 centimetres. I don't even need to look at my graph, so my answer to question 1 is 12 centimetres. Question 2 says, how much has the plant grown in week 2? Well, again, we can look at our graph here to help us, but we can also use our table to find the information there as well. So how much has the plant grown in week 2? Well, it's 7 centimetres by week 2, but the question is asking how much has it grown in week 2? Well, it was 4 centimetres at the end of week 1, and now it's 7 centimetres. So how much has it grown? It's grown 3 centimetres, because the difference between 4 centimetres and 7 centimetres is 3. Finally, third question, does the plant grow at the same rate every week? Well, you can see from our graph here what the answer to that is. The answer is no, because if it was exactly the same rate each week, this would be a perfectly straight line that would look something more like this. But it's not a perfectly straight line, which shows that our plant grows at different rates according to which week it is. How did you do on those questions? Hope you did okay. Hope you understood that. That's the end of lesson 3 today. So well done, you've done lots of learning there. Maybe it's time to go and get on with some English learning. Maybe you're going to go for a walk outside now, go and get yourself a drink or a biscuit or give yourself a break. But whatever you're doing now, well done, and I'll catch up with you tomorrow to look at lesson 4. Bye for now.